The lunch bell rang across Willow Creek Elementary, echoing through the courtyard where children rushed out with the kind of energy only kids have in the middle of a school day. Laughter filled the air. Backpacks thudded against benches. Teachers stood watchful but smiling. And then came a man, tall, a little tired around the eyes, holding a warm lunch bag and a quiet hope. Daniel Hayes walked through the front gate with his visitor badge slightly crooked on his shirt. He wasn't used to being here at this hour, but today wasn't a usual day at all. Today was special. Today he had promised his little girl something he hadn't been able to give her in weeks. Time. A lunch together, just the two of them. He checked his watch. 12:10. He was early. He liked being early. For 9-year-old Lily, he would be early 1,000 times if it meant seeing that smile, the one she used to wear all the time before life got complicated. A gust of wind tugged at his shirt, carrying the scent of cut grass and cafeteria pizza. He breathed in slowly. He was nervous. It surprised him. He'd been to her school many times before for parent-teacher conferences, for plays, for weekend fairs, but this felt different. Maybe because today he wasn't just visiting. He was making up for something. A lot of things. The receptionist had told him Lily's class usually ate on the far left side of the courtyard. So he walked, scanning for her, expecting to see her with her friends, probably sitting cross-legged and chatting like she always used to. But then, he froze. His heartbeat stumbled. His breath caught. Because there she was, sitting alone, on the ground, with no lunch, her knees pulled tight to her chest, and her face hidden in them. Daniel's chest tightened so sharply it hurt. He took a few slow steps, like his legs had forgotten how to work. A couple of kids glanced at Lily as they passed, whispering to each other. He heard one girl snicker. "She's weird, always eating alone." Another voice chimed in. "Yeah, and she never talks. My mom says she's..." Daniel didn't hear the rest. His ears filled with a roaring sound. Anger, hurt, confusion, all tangled together. Why was she alone? Where were her friends? Why wasn't she eating? His daughter, who had once been the brightest spark in a crowd and now looked like a tiny, crumpled shadow. Slowly he knelt beside her. "Lily." She flinched. Actually flinched, like she hadn't expected anyone to come near her. Her head lifted, red-eyed, startled, and when she recognized him, the surprise washed into something else. Not relief. Not happiness. But embarrassment. "Daddy," her voice cracked. "WH, what are you doing here?" Daniel tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Lunch date, remember? I brought your favorite, grilled cheese with tomato soup." She wiped her nose quickly with her sleeve, avoiding his eyes. I forgot." She didn't forget. Daniel knew that immediately. Something was wrong, something bigger than a child simply losing track of things. He placed the warm paper bag beside her gently. "Why aren't you sitting at the tables with the others?" Lily hugged herself tighter. "It's fine, I like it here." But her voice trembled. Her hands trembled too. He glanced around. Groups of kids sat laughing, eating, chatting. A few looked their way, some with curiosity, some with not very kind expressions. He recognized a girl pointing, another whispering. A boy rolled his eyes like Lily was some kind of inconvenience in his perfect school world. Daniel felt heat rise up his neck. Something was very, very wrong. But he didn't push her, not yet. She was too fragile in this moment. So he sat beside her on the cold ground, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "May I sit here with you, Miss Hayes?" Her shoulders softened just a little. "Okay." He opened the lunch bag. The smell of warm, buttery grilled cheese drifted out, and for a second her face twitched like she wanted to smile. But she didn't. Not fully. Not like before. He placed the sandwich halves between them. Eat, sweetheart. She hesitated before taking one tiny bite, then another. It looked like she hadn't eaten since breakfast, maybe even before that. Daniel waited until she was halfway through before speaking softly. Lily, have you been eating alone like this for a while? Her chewing slowed, then stopped. She nodded barely. A shard of heartbreak pushed straight through him. Why, he whispered, what happened? Lily swallowed hard. I didn't want to tell you. Sweetheart, you can tell me anything. But she shook her head quickly. No, you're already tired. You already work so much because of me and because of. Her voice choked, the sentence unfinished. Daniel's breath trembled. Because of her mother. Because the divorce had turned everything upside down. Because he'd been working double shifts just to keep everything afloat. He gently placed his hand over hers. Hey, I'm here. Whatever it is, I want to know. Lily blinked, and tears welled up again. She pressed her lips together like the words were fighting to come out. And then, a shadow fell over them. Daniel looked up. 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, stood with their arms crossed, wearing smirks far too smug for their age. The tallest girl sneered. Awa, is Daddy here to protect the crybaby again? Lily's face went pale. Daniel's stomach dropped. Again. The boy added, she always sits here alone. She's weird. Nobody wants. Daniel rose to his feet, slow and steady, not towering, not intimidating, just present, calm and firm. That's enough. The kids froze. His voice wasn't loud, but it was the kind that carried weight, the kind that made kids remember their manners. Do any of you think it's kind to speak like that? He asked quietly. None of them answered. The smallest girl mumbled, You were just hurting someone who never did anything to you. They looked at each other, suddenly less confident. We're gonna tell a teacher you yelled at us, the boy snapped. Daniel didn't blink. I didn't yell, and yes, go tell a teacher, please do. I'll be right beside you when you explain why you're bullying a child at lunchtime. Their mouths snapped shut. And without another word, they turned and walked away quickly. When Daniel sat back down beside Lily, she was staring at her knees, shaking. Sweetheart, he whispered, how long has this been happening? She sniffed. Since Mom moved away. They say that kids with broken homes are weird, and that I'm different now. Something inside Daniel cracked apart. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a firm, warm embrace. You are not weird, and you are not alone, ever. She buried her face in his chest, sobbing quietly as he held her. Around them, the courtyard buzzed with normal school life. But to Daniel, it felt like the world had tilted. Because the father who thought he was doing enough by working hard had just realized he'd missed the most painful part of his daughter's life. And now, he was determined to fix it. No matter what it took, the bell rang again, a shrill slice through the comfort of the moment, signaling the end of lunch. Children scattered toward their classrooms, voices echoing through the courtyard, but Daniel didn't move. He held Lily a little longer until her breathing steadied and her trembling settled. Eventually, she pulled back gently, wiping her eyes again. Daddy, you're going to be late for work. I'm not going back today, he said immediately. Her head jerked up, but your boss can manage without me. He stood and offered her his hand. Right now, you're more important. She took it hesitantly, as if afraid he might change his mind. But he didn't. He squeezed her small hand in his, walked with her toward her classroom, and only let go when her teacher emerged in the doorway. Mrs. Keller was a woman in her late 50s, glasses perched at the tip of her nose, expression always 2 degrees away from deep concern. Her eyebrows shot up when she saw Daniel. Mr. Hayes, is everything all right? No, he said plainly. I need to talk with you privately. Her eyes flicked toward Lily, red-eyed, quiet, shoulders tight. She understood immediately. "All right, Lily, sweetheart, why don't you take your seat? We'll start in a minute." Lily nodded and slipped inside. When the door closed, Mrs. Keller folded her arms gently. "Tell me what happened." Daniel exhaled. Why didn't anyone tell me my daughter was eating alone every day? Why didn't anyone tell me she was being bullied? Mrs. Keller's shoulders sagged. Because she asked us not to. He blinked. What? She said she didn't want to worry you. She said you were already working too hard. And she said she didn't want to cause any trouble. Daniel looked down, swallowing the knot in his throat. Lily trying to protect him. Lily thinking she was a burden. Mrs. Keller went on, voice soft. "I've spoken to the bullies before. I've separated them. I've warned them. But bullying is," she hesitated, "persistent, subtle, and Lily withdraws instead of coming to us." "Why?" he whispered. "Because she feels responsible for things that are not her fault." His chest ached. "This is because of the divorce, isn't it?" Mrs. Keller gave him a sympathetic look. "Children often carry the weight of adult decisions in ways we never expect. And Lily, she's sensitive, thoughtful, deeply attached to both parents. When her mother moved away, it hit her harder than she let on." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He remembered the way Lily used to draw pictures of their family, always three figures, always smiling. He remembered how she'd asked, on the night her mother left, "Do people stop loving others when they're tired?" He remembered her falling asleep on his chest that same night, clutching the hem of his shirt like she was afraid he might disappear too. He should have seen this coming. "I want to help her," he said firmly. "Whatever it takes, I'm not letting this continue." Mrs. Keller nodded. "We can set up counseling. We can increase monitoring. I'll also speak with the principal and with the parents of the children involved." "I want to speak with them too," Daniel cut in, his tone sharpened but controlled. "And with the principal today." "I can arrange that." "Thank you." As she left to gather the necessary people, Daniel leaned against the wall outside the classroom. Through the window, he saw Lily at her desk, shoulders hunched, pretending to read while two girls whispered behind cupped hands. He saw her glance nervously around the room. He saw fear where sunlight used to be. His heart clenched. Not anymore, he promised silently. Not ever again. Within half an hour, Daniel found himself seated in the principal's office. An overly neat room with tall bookshelves, framed certificates, and that familiar school smell of disinfectant and paper. Principal Ruiz, a composed woman in a navy blazer, sat behind her desk, hands folded. Across from them sat the parents of the three children involved, two women and one man, each with their own brand of defensiveness painted across their faces. Mrs. Keller stood by the door observing quietly. Principal Ruiz began, "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. We're here to discuss the ongoing bullying directed toward Lily Hayes." One of the mothers, the one with a diamond necklace and a permanently raised eyebrow, leaned back in her chair. "Bullying? My daughter said they were just joking. Kids tease each other. That's not bullying." Daniel turned his head slowly. "Your daughter called mine a crybaby and mocked her for her mother leaving. Is that a joke to you?" She stiffened slightly. "Well, kids repeat what they hear." "So you taught her that?" His voice was calm, dangerously calm. She faltered, "No, of course not." The father beside her jumped in. "Look, man, I'm sorry your kid's going through stuff, but our kids didn't do anything worth all this drama." Daniel inhaled deeply, steadying himself. "My daughter eats alone every single day. She cries before school, she hides at lunch, and she never told anyone because she didn't want to cause trouble." His voice shook on the edges, but his words were steady. "This isn't drama. This is my child suffering." The father opened his mouth, but Principal Ruiz raised a hand sharply. "Mr. Clark, enough." Mrs. Keller stepped forward. "We've witnessed the behavior. It is bullying. We've intervened multiple times." The third parent, a quiet woman with tired eyes, whispered, I didn't know my son was doing this. I'm sorry, truly. Daniel nodded politely to her. Then he faced the others again. You don't have to like my daughter. Your kids don't have to be friends with her, but they will treat her with respect. I won't compromise on that. Mr. Clark scoffed, about to retort, but Principal Ruiz cut in again, firm. There will be disciplinary actions, mandatory apologies, and all 3 children will attend counseling sessions with our school psychologist. Daniel added quietly, and I'll be checking in every day. The parents fell silent. Even the defensive ones understood that Daniel wasn't the kind of father who made empty promises. When the meeting ended, Daniel walked out into the hallway, exhaling a breath he felt he'd been holding for months. His legs finally loosened, and the tension in his shoulders eased slightly. Then a soft voice called, "Daddy." He turned. Lily stood by the lockers, clutching her backpack straps. Did you get in trouble?" He smiled gently. "No, sweetheart." Her eyes searched his face. Are they mad at you?" "They might be," he answered honestly. "But that's okay. I don't care if they're mad at me. I care if they hurt you." She seemed to absorb that slowly, like she wasn't used to someone taking her side so fiercely. Daniel knelt so they were eye level. "Lily, I'm sorry I didn't know sooner, but I know now, and I'm here, I'm really here." Her chin wobbled. "I didn't want to make things harder." "You could never make things harder," he said, voice thick. "You just make my life better." Tears spilled down her cheeks. And this time, she hugged him first. He wrapped his arms around her small, shaking body, holding her like he could protect her from every cruel thing in the world. Over her shoulder, Mrs. Keller watched with a soft, knowing smile. When the school day finally ended, Daniel picked her up early. They walked to the car hand in hand. Lily was still fragile, but something about her posture had changed, perhaps a tiny flicker of relief, like she wasn't carrying everything alone anymore. Once inside the car, Daniel asked gently, "Do you want ice cream?" She nodded quickly, almost desperately. He smiled, "Then ice cream it is." They drove to the little parlor downtown, the one with mismatched chairs and the rainbow sprinkles Lily always loved. For the first time in weeks, she ordered exactly what she wanted, 2 scoops of strawberry with gummy bears. As she ate, her face softened. Her eyes brightened just a little. "You're really not mad?" she asked again. "I'm not mad at you," Daniel answered. "I'm mad I didn't know, but I'm going to fix that, I promise." "And you're not leaving, like Mom." Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "Never," he whispered. "I will never ever leave you." Her lip trembled. And then, for the first time in a long while, she smiled. A tiny smile, but real. And Daniel felt something warm settle inside him. A vow, a fire, a purpose. Because this wasn't the end of the struggle. This was only the beginning. But he was ready. Because now he knew the truth. And no one, no bully, no circumstance, no hardship, would ever break his daughter again. The next morning, Daniel woke with a different kind of determination, quiet, strong, unwavering. He moved through the house with purpose, packing Lily's lunch himself. Her favorite sandwiches cut into stars, apple slices arranged like a flower, and a handwritten note tucked inside that simply read, "You're brave. You're loved. I'm proud of you. Dad." When he stepped into Lily's room, she was already awake, sitting on her bed with her backpack hugged to her chest. Her eyes looked clearer today, but still cautious, like a bird that wanted to fly but wasn't sure if the sky was safe. "Ready for school?" Daniel asked softly. She nodded, but her voice was small. "Are you coming too?" Daniel smiled. "Not for lunch today, but I'm walking you in, and I'm talking with your teacher again." A tiny exhale of relief slipped from her, and she stood, slipping her hand into his as they walked out the door. The morning air was cool and bright, sunlight spilling over rooftops like warm honey. Birds chirped loudly, as if reminding the world that it was allowed to begin again. Lily walked slightly behind him at first, but as they approached the school gate, she stepped beside him, closer than usual. Dozens of children swarmed the sidewalks, groups laughing, parents calling out last-minute reminders. It all looked the same, but Lily didn't. Not today. Today she didn't look invisible. Today she had her father at her side. When they reached the courtyard, a few kids paused, staring. Daniel felt Lily's hand tense in his, but he didn't let go. He crouched down. "Remember," he whispered, "none of them decide your worth. You walk with your head high, okay?" She swallowed, "Okay." "Say it," he encouraged softly. She hesitated. "I walk with my head high." He gave her hand one last squeeze and stood. Mrs. Keller waved from across the courtyard, smiling warmly. But before they could reach her, the same 3 kids from yesterday stepped into view, each wearing expressions that had changed drastically overnight. Guilt, nervousness, maybe even fear. Their parents had clearly done some talking. The boy stepped forward first, glancing at Daniel briefly before looking at Lily. I'm sorry," he muttered miserably. "We shouldn't have said stuff, it was mean." One of the girls added, "Yeah, sorry." The third girl, usually the boldest, looked directly at Lily and then at Daniel, her eyes wide. "We didn't know things were hard for you." Lily's hands tightened into fists at her sides. Her breath came fast. Daniel knelt beside her. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered. "Just breathe." Lily nodded, shutting her eyes for a moment. Then she did something that made Daniel's chest swell. She lifted her chin. "It hurt," she said softly, "a lot." The kids nodded, shame washing through their faces. "I won't be mean again," the smaller girl whispered. "I promise." Daniel watched them leave, their steps slower, their shoulders lower. At least today there was change. Maybe not perfection, but change. Mrs. Keller approached then. "Good morning, Lily. You look brighter today." Lily managed a small, shy smile. "Daddy packed my lunch." "Well, that guarantees a good day," Mrs. Keller said warmly. Daniel stood and spoke quietly to the teacher. "I'll pick her up after school. I'd like to keep checking in. Often." "You're welcome any time," she assured him. He looked down at Lily. "Have a good day, sweetheart." She reached out suddenly and hugged him tightly in front of everyone, something she hadn't done at school in years. "Promise you'll be here when school ends," she whispered. "I promise," he said, kissing the top of her head. "I'm not going anywhere." She walked toward the classroom, pausing once to wave before disappearing inside. Daniel exhaled slowly. Today was the beginning of healing. He spent the morning rearranging work obligations, talking with his boss, explaining everything. His boss, a stern man with a surprisingly soft heart, heard him out entirely before saying, "Family first, Daniel. We'll adjust your schedule." For the first time in months, Daniel felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. He visited a counselor recommended by Mrs. Keller, arranged sessions for Lily, signed paperwork, answered questions. He left no detail unattended. Because this time he wasn't reacting, he was preparing. He was building something stronger for his daughter. A wall of safety, a net of support, a future where she didn't have to shrink to fit into anyone's cruelty. At 3:00 p.m., he stood outside the school gate precisely on time. Several parents waited nearby, chatting in clusters. When Lily stepped out, her eyes searched the crowd instantly and landed on him. Her whole face lit up. She ran to him, her backpack bouncing. "You came," she breathed. "Told you I would." She grabbed his hand without hesitation. Today was better. He smiled. "Tell me everything." They walked toward the car slowly, her small voice filling the afternoon air. I sat at a table today, she said proudly, not the ground. That's amazing. And Mrs. Keller asked me to help hand out papers, and I did, and the kids didn't laugh. Daniel listened with his whole heart. Every word was a victory. Every tiny improvement was a mountain climbed. And at lunch, she paused. He stopped walking. What happened at lunch? She looked up at him, eyes shining. A girl named Harper asked if she could sit with me. Daniel felt his throat tighten. Did you say yes? She nodded. She likes drawing cats. I like drawing cats. Perfect match, he laughed softly. Dad, she said after a moment. Yes. She squeezed his hand. Thanks for not giving up on me. Daniel knelt, cupping her face gently. Never, he whispered. Not in 1,000 lifetimes. She smiled, and this time it was bright, wide, unguarded. The kind of smile he hadn't seen since before the divorce. The kind that lit up her whole face, like the sun rising after a very long night. They didn't go straight home. Instead, Daniel drove them to the seaside, Lily's favorite place, where the waves kissed the shore and the sky stretched endlessly overhead. She ran along the waterline, shoes dangling from her hands, her laughter mixing with the sound of the ocean. Daniel watched from a short distance, feeling something unfamiliar wash over him. Hope. The kind that wasn't fragile anymore. The kind that promised better days. When Lily returned, cheeks flushed, hair blowing wildly, she plopped down beside him on the sand. Dad, she said again. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mom misses me? Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. Yes, I think she does. Even if things didn't work out the way any of us wanted, she loves you, and she'll always be part of your life. Will I see her again? Yes, and next time, he said gently. You won't face anything alone. I'll be with you, always. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I'm glad you came to school yesterday, she murmured. Me too, he said softly. I needed to see what you were carrying. You saw everything, she whispered. He wrapped an arm around her, and I'll keep seeing from now on. As the tide rolled in and the horizon glowed brighter, Daniel realized something profound. Showing up that day wasn't an accident. It was a turning point. A moment that changed everything. A devoted father walked into a school at lunchtime and walked out with the truth he never knew he needed to see. That his daughter didn't need a perfect life. She just needed him. Present, aware, loving, unshakable. And from that day on, she had exactly that. The end.